All right. I'll call the October 28th meeting of the Beaufort County Police Committee to order. Microphone. I'll do it over. I'll call the October 28th meeting of the Beaufort County Police Committee to order. And Randy, could you lead us in a prayer?
Sure will. Dear Lord, please be with us as we make decisions concerning this great county. And please make those decisions be for the people of Beaufort County. Amen.
Stan Deathridge, would you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, and may we rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started, we have a housekeeping order. I would like for the person who's operating the video, filming the meeting tonight, to come forward for just a minute. Yes. She heard us. All right. Thank you. Thanks for coming up here. Is the audio video equipment operating properly? Okay. If it ceases to operate properly, would you come forward and notify the board, the committee, that things are not right? Thank you, ma'am.
One more thing, Melissa. Can you turn down the volume a little bit? Hood sounded like...
He's got it.
Okay, turn it down just a little bit. It sounded like, Hood, you sounded like you were speaking at Ficklin Stadium.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Yeah.
Right.
I was getting a little feedback. Thank you so much. All right. The review and approve the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? I got the minutes, but we have any comments, anything we need to change?
Motion to approve.
I hear a second.
Well, I haven't really had a chance to see the minutes. I haven't had a chance to see the minutes, and I'm wondering how could there be minutes, considering that our audio was not functional in the last meeting, and that no minutes were taken as per a recording device.
Well, let's ask the clerk, did we produce minutes from that meeting? I mean, I've gotten things in them.
Yes, sir. They were an abbreviated, as you'll remember, I wasn't here at the last meeting. They are an abbreviated version, but
I thought I'd seen them.
They were sent out.
Well, I don't think I can vote for it.
Well, we can delay this till the next meeting if the board's in agreement. All right, we'll delay
I'll pull my
this.
motion.
All right, and Madam Clerk, would you send us those again?
Yes, sir. Happy to.
Okay, thank you so much. We are now into the public comments part of the meeting. We usually have several people here for public comments, so as speaking for 3 minutes, is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public comments for 3 minutes? You would? Now, your subject is going to come up as an agenda item, but if you want to speak separately from that, you may. Now, that's not limited to 3 minutes, so we can take as much time as we need to. All right, not hearing anyone who wishes to speak, we're closing the public comments part of this particular meeting. The next agenda item is Orville Ireland, and he would like to give us a presentation on some of his experiences with services from the county. Come forward and...
She's going to speak for us. She typed it all out.
To try to keep me on frame. I'd first like to thank everyone that does this tedious work.
Yeah.
There's a little button on the side.
Oh, you mean the microphone?
There's actually a little button on the side of the podium.
Oh,
It will load.
this one? Oh, okay. Oh, cool. All electronics have a mind of their own. I just want to thank everybody for doing this tedious work, what I would consider tedious work, commissioners in general in the running of the county. We've had a lot of dealings that were not expected when we went to the sheriff thing. So we've just started getting involved with elections of sheriffs. I think a couple of years ago was the first time I ever voted, but I was sad because you don't plan to have problems that you need to deal with the sheriff department. So I'm going to start from the beginning. That led us to just one of the crime rings that has chosen our area/neighborhood to do their criminal business, which is what provoked Orville and I to stand up for our community. I have lived at Deerfield Acres for over 30 years, so I know what I'm seeing go on in this neighborhood. It has gone from a quiet, easy going place to live to a professional criminal playground with an excessive amount of traffic going and coming all hours. I do work 50 hours a week, so I can't seem to follow up with Crime Stoppers to respond to follow-up questions to their standards. On January 3rd, 2018, our house was broken into, and we do thank the Officer Babos for doing a good report that the investigator was able to follow up on. So the criminals were arrested and charged, but as Orville followed the case through the court system, he learned that the crime ring had broken into 16 other places before our home. Armed with this information and knowledge of criminal activity in our neighborhood that has been going on for years is why we thought it would be beneficial to address them all at this time. And as we followed up with making sure the probation officers and other law members knew we wouldn't be satisfied until we were made whole financially again, we discovered many of them are well aware of the area criminal activity, but want to also thank the ones who do their jobs well and who are there to help the victims, like the Victim Service Coordinator, Summer Rogers, and Probation Supervisor, Carl Smith. Second on the list is the heavy traffic from about 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. We live in a private neighborhood, by the way, that is going down a dirt dead-end road. We at one point collected 60 different license plates. We turned these into Crime Stoppers and to the Sheriff Department, and was even told we had one of the Sheriff Department's undercover license plates in our list. But this is hard to believe after Ernie Coleman told us of all the different things they could employ to help with the problem. We also contacted Seth Edwards after getting a bunch of excuses of why more was not being done, and received a letter back from him on 10/31/2019. Give him a year and a half to help us. We would randomly ask for a 2-week neighborhood patrol to help discourage their activity, which did seem to help because one of the dealers would move out of the neighborhood until the patrol was expired. I guess this is our reasoning to feel that someone has to have a connection to the Sheriff Department. I just don't see you having all the information these guys have to stay out of trouble. This is also the area where a head-on collision happened on Highway 264 with a Pitt County deputy returning from Beaufort Community College training involving a drunk driver, and yet still no urgency to clean this area up. And we know that other neighbors have called and complained about the heavy, tire squealing, and speeding traffic down Voice of America Road, Robertsonville Road, and so on. And just recent, a neighbor told us he reported seeing 22 cars in a matter of an hour go down Remington Lane and back out in quick succession. And now Stoppers has changed the way to report problems or information, which seems to be the only way the Sheriff Department wants to hear from the public. This is a problem because you give, although I think they fixed this problem, but it leads to another one. This is a problem because you give a general location to start with, but for Washington, it is only Washington, D.C. and Washington Montessori School, I guess. So with not feeling that they are handling the continued information properly, I would also continue to send the most important information to Lieutenant Davenport and Lieutenant Cox, but they don't even reply whether or not they have received the information. The last text I sent was on 7/30/2021, no response. Then on top of this, the neighborhood has a drainage problem because in the last 30 years I've lived here, the ditches have never been cleaned out. So we did our research and took it to the Sheriff Department just in case we had problems from the neighborhood. The sheriff replied after looking at our research and told us it looked like we had done our due diligence. Wow. Have we encountered a lot of ignorance? People don't even know what ditches are for anymore. Now wonder the flooding sparks fear of climate change. And so, of course, we are dealing with a lawsuit, trying to get drainage in our neighborhood. And this brings us to our next failure of the Sheriff Department, not being able to handle just paperwork. This failure to get a summons returned to White and Allen after White and Allen supplied them with the return self-addressed paid postage envelope, which I'm pretty sure the sheriff's office recharged me for them to do their job they failed to do the first time. I have the letter from Callie Harris saying the letter was sent, but the proof should have been the lawyer getting the paperwork. While not sure how long this went on, the Sheriff office closed for cleaning for COVID a couple of days a week. It seems like it was to restrict public access. When cleaning could be scheduled at a more appropriate time, they are already have the public confined to a very small area and the workers protected from ceiling to floor. We do have a Ring security camera at the front and back door since the break-in, but still ask for a neighborhood patrol when gone about a week. In around August 9th through the 13th, the last time was to help my son move to Georgia. This time when I called the deputy, I asked if this time when I called, the deputy asked if I would like the officer to check the doors and doorknobs. I was surprised. I didn't know they provided that service, so when I repeated what the deputy offered and they confirmed what I heard, I accepted. I also took this time to ask if they call neighborhood patrol over the radio, and she replied they do send them. I told her I wouldn't want this to be announced over the radio, but we never saw anyone even in the driveway or check the doors for the whole week we were gone, so I can only inject it as offering that service as sarcasm from the Sheriff Department. I do have proof of the stuff that I spoke about.
I have a couple questions.
Okay?
Excuse me. How many of the crimes that you mentioned, I think you said 16 crimes were committed, how many of those were in your neighborhood, Deerfield Acres?
I don't have an exact number because we have so many problems going on. We don't have time to, I know of a few right offhand that were in our back neighborhoods right behind us. They had broken into a truck around that time, and then a couple of houses. I do know at 4525, 11/7/2019, there was attempted break-in, because I documented that one.
Most of them drug-related, narcotics-related?
I can only assume, because in what I wrote to someone else, I was complaining about how the person causing the problem would leave when we would call for patrol. And then no sooner than they would come back, we had an attempted break-in around the corner. Is what I have documented. So I would suspect it was.
What makes you think that the sheriff's office responds best to Crime Stoppers rather than speaking to you directly?
Your guess is as good as mine, because if somebody drops the ball, they ain't got to deal with it.
Have they been reluctant to get back with you when you spoke to them, or?
Let's see, some of the excuses when we first called, it might take me a minute to find it. We got the problem with the jail as an excuse. They were too poor to deal with.
You mean they're saying they're underfunded?
No, they were saying that the people that were the drug dealers were too poor to worry with.
Too poor?
I
think I've heard that one before.
That was new.
I've heard that we didn't steal enough from you, so we're not going to investigate it. But
They weren't worth going to catch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's the way they give back to the community, I don't know.
They weren't giving nothing back.
That's right, well, that's
They
what,
stole everything we had.
oh my
The only
gosh.
reason we had television left was it bolted on the wall.
He's not
Oh my
not pulling
gosh.
any strings.
Oh, that's
As
all.
far as the houses around us, I know our neighbor over the road, like she said, they broke the truck window out of his truck, probably $500 worth of damage for $5 worth of change in the console. Next house over, they believe somebody tried to break in there. But it was weren't right in our area, but it was all around the area.
Sorry to hear that. And,
Me too, because it used to be a really nice place to live.
yeah, I've heard that.
But you know, what was amazing is everywhere we went, law enforcement knows this area is a horrible area. And yet, nothing is being done. I don't understand it. What do we have to do to get something done?
has there been a community watch group out there?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay.
I think somebody in the neighborhood behind, further down on Robertsonville Road is another subdivision/trailer park area. And someone did send out letters for something to that, but you don't never know where that stuff is coming from, so I never did anything with it.
Okay. Commissioner Walker, do you have any, have you finished?
I'm done.
Commissioner Walker?
Out of everybody that is being affected by this, are you the only one that calls in complaints, or is there everybody that's...
I know at least 2 other households that's called.
And they get the same results?
Yeah, 0.
We even give one gentleman that's supposed to be a close friend of Ernie's our documentation. That's how far that went.
Oh. Are you aware of any arrest and conviction of any crime out there? I mean, that's probably something that you're not aware of anyway, but is there anything that you can, oh yeah, I remember this guy was arrested and convicted? No, none.
No.
Only
They're
the
too
ones
poor.
that got us.
Don't forget, they're too poor to address.
Right. Understand.
I mean, we don't live in a upscale neighborhood. We're just regular
poor folks.
Well, let me be sure about the service of papers. What happened on the service of papers is you were involved in a lawsuit with someone, and the papers were served apparently by the sheriff on the individuals who were supposed to be served.
Correct.
But
That part was
then the proof of service never got to your attorney
Correct.
at all.
And when he called me, I called Callie, because that's who I was handed off to question it, and then she sent me a letter. I cannot swear to it because I cannot find the receipt, and it's really strange. But I could have swore I went to the office and paid them $75 to do that process the second go-around.
So you had to pay for the second service.
Correct. What are taxes for?
When summons are put together, there's at least 3 different copies. There's the original, and then there's 2 copies, if I understand this correctly. I'm sure there's not 1 copy. So the original would go to the person who's being served. The copy would go, 1 copy would go to the person who is initiating the service, your attorney. And there should have been another copy. Does the sheriff not file these copies? Do they not have an orderly system that they can go back and see what they have done?
From my experience, I would guess not.
Because if they did keep records, even if they scanned the paper, and a lot of places now, instead of keeping a lot of that stuff around, they'll scan it and, and into a file, and then if you have a problem, they just go back to the file, pull it up, and make a copy. So we don't know what happens to the 3rd sheet in the sheriff's department when it's served, do we, of the summons?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find something.
Well, that's fine. That's a rhetorical question. You really don't have to answer it.
I'm sorry.
But the point here is that records are not being kept as they should be kept. The sheriff should be able to tell you who he's served. It's not a matter of we're serving you, we're going to give you the original, and we're going to take 1 copy and we're going to mail it to the person that started the service, and we're going to throw the 3rd one away.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why I was having to pay to have it redone. I'd already paid for it. The lawyer sent $200 to pay for it.
This is just a great example of inefficiency coming out of the sheriff's department.
Yeah, but if there was money paid, there's got to be a receipt, it seems like.
It could be in their book. I just can't
In other words,
find mine.
you couldn't find your receipt, so they made you pay for it again.
No.
No.
I'm saying I can't find
You can't
my
prove
receipt
your
of the
first claim.
$75. No, the lawyer sent the first $200 to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
The 75 was the backup, do it again
Yes,
price.
yes.
Right, so 275 total was spent
I got you.
on this one set of papers. But somebody should have receipts. Well, it's more important that they have the receipt than you.
I
I
went
can
through my
understand.
2019 taxes where I thought it should be, and I went through my checkbook. But I'm thinking I had it on me when I went down there, and I probably paid it in cash. It would be in theirs. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I know several other people that live in the neighborhood, and I have had the same complaints that you have about the criminal activity and about the high level of traffic and that's in the neighborhood, and we all know what that usually goes to. It's narcotics dealers. But you made an interesting observation when you say that if you put pressure on the sheriff for them to do an intensive neighborhood watch, the drug dealers move, and then they move right back in as soon as that's over with.
where are they getting the information?
Yeah, how do they know when to move and when to come back?
Exactly. Because we did this repeatedly, because that seemed to slow down the traffic.
Yeah.
So when we caught on to that, we did it right many times.
Well, have you talked to Mr. Davenport, Deputy Davenport, about why they don't have an undercover operation in there to get
Okay.
this thing cleared up?
The problem that, the excuses that he first gave me was he started with the problem with the jail. Their charges would be low bail. They started that this was still serious enough. I stated that this was still serious enough that it would at least cost them money. And I asked if this is pills, why can't the doctor be informed about the problem? Because then he told me, but the person has a legitimate reason for the pills. I didn't know whether it was pills or not.
Yeah, so he told you that, huh? Well, yeah, see,
There's knowledge, all kinds of knowledge, but nothing's being done about it.
I have a problem with the thing that comes out of the sheriff's department of they didn't steal enough from you for us to investigate it. And then number two, making excuses for the people who are in poverty, so we're not going to charge them for selling drugs. And then the lack of intensive investigation that goes on, because I don't know whether you remember it, Randy, or not, or Stan, I don't know whether you were on the board at the time or not. I think you probably were. I made the motion that we have a 4-person drug unit. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And we funded it. The county funded that as a separate unit with the understanding that the sheriff could not pull them off of drugs to do other things.
I was back during Alan Jordan's tenure.
Yeah, that was Alan Jordan was the sheriff then. Yeah, that's when the drug unit got started, and we were hoping that the drug unit would do a lot more than what it's done. They have done some important things, but the neighborhood drugs is really the issue that bothers most people, because somebody traveling up and down Highway 17 with a trunk full of dope doesn't really bother anybody because they're going through. But what affects us and our families are the local sales.
And
Yes, sir.
When they do the neighborhood watch thing, what does that look like? What happens there? What do they do?
in the beginning, I guess we were taken serious in the beginning. In the beginning, they would come down. At that point, we had started digging in the ditches too, and we were starting to have people call the law on us too. So they would come down and sit in the corner where Winchester is a dirt road, and then it goes through a slight curve to the right and turns into Remington Lane, which is where a lot of the activity is coming from. They would sit there for a little bit, and then they would come on out slow. They would come in slow and just ride and then come out. But like I said, the primary person had already left the building.
And you noticed a decline in activity.
Yes.
Gee, some of these cars that we have parked around here, we could just park them out there.
That reminds me.
Yeah, that's right.
That would
That-
probably do more than you think.
Yeah.
That reminds me too that we just recently had this major break-in of stolen motors. Are we not having any patrol whatsoever with the sheriff department?
I don't know. What about the stolen motors? I don't know about
It was
that.
on the
that was the-
news.
Out here,
Out there by Lee Chevrolet, they took all those
yeah, what's the name?
boats.
Avalanche.
Yeah.
Oh, the boats.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They were
right.
there all night long.
Had to be.
Where is patrol?
Well, now that would be city out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, the sheriff goes by there. I mean, he overlaps, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he's got to get to our area. I was like,
Yeah. Okay.
And this is a rhetorical question for everyone. In these crime-ridden areas where there seems to be just a hot spot of activity, why not put up motion-sensitive cameras?
Well, that would be up to the sheriff to do that.
Why wouldn't he do that?
Well, that gets us back into one of the things that you've heard me talk about in these meetings. If we were to go to police department, one of the things that I think we will get out of this is a professional forensics department.
Yeah.
In which case you will have a lot more of those kinds of investigations. Sheriff's departments are not organized, not set up. They're political appointees that are working as deputies. So they're just not into the more fine, if you will, aspects of criminal deterrence like that.
When you don't have a lot of troopers and you've got 4 to 6 of them on the road at all times, cameras are inexpensive now, and it takes somebody to read them and look at them, and see what's going on when there's motion. But from what you're saying, there's a lot of activity out there correlating with a low population. So per capita, there's a lot of crime. So it would be worth their while to do that, and they do have plenty of investigators.
Well, with that much traffic, a great place for a license check seems to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well-
yeah.
Well, yeah, and this gets us back to trying to work with the sheriff's department when he tells us that he's in charge and that we don't have anything to do with this. It's a public issue, the public pays for his people, but the Sheriff Coleman refuses to cooperate on these kinds of matters because he says that he's in charge, we need to go away and let him do what he wants to. Whereas with a police department, we'll have a police chief to talk to, we'll have a county manager to talk to, we'll have boards of county commissioners who are involved in this, and on evaluation, we'll have a police committee. So, plus, we will have professional officers who are not hired because of their political support of a sheriff during an election.
Well, you could respond to Ernie Coleman that he give us all kinds of different routes he could take, with even cutting through the woods, the best Spy 5 crap. He sold it good to us, and we haven't seen any results.
None of it happened, it was all talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I thank y'all for coming to make your presentation. I have, over the last several years, had a lot of complaints that are identical to the ones that you talked about here today. A lot of traffic, nothing's ever done. Deputies come by every once in a while. Yeah, we get talked to, but that's about all that happens. So I've had the identical complaint myself. Commissioner Deathridge and Commissioner Walker, do you have any last questions?
I'm good.
Do you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just to thank you for your time, and I hope we get some help.
We appreciate you coming and making this presentation about your particular situation. We understand it. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to update the Bruce Gray situation. The manager may know more than I do about this. There may be other people that know more than I do, but the latest conversation that I had with Mr. Gray was about a week or so ago. And he indicated that he has offered to bring the proof that the chief deputy wanted to a meeting that would include the chief deputy, several of, 2 or 3 of Mr. Gray's witnesses, and that he would, along with, he was asking for somebody with the SBI or a third party, somebody from the DA's office, that he has offered this, and that he has no response from the sheriff. So that's where we are with this at this point in time. They apparently want to meet one-on-one and get the information, but they don't want to meet in anything that looks like it could be even a quasi-public venue. Does anybody have anything to add?
I do.
Good.
Well, it would be nice that they would get off the dime and do something. I mean, what we heard from the chief deputy, and it might have been after the meeting, that they were completely unaware of Mr. Gray. He kind of slid by them or through the cracks or whatever, but he was not an issue with them. They did not know. One of the reasons they wanted an investigation, as per the chief deputy, if I remember correctly, is to get to the bottom of it. However, we had 4 commissioners who saw fit to not be concerned about Mr. Gray's plight and thought that they knew better than the chief deputy, and they knew better than we did, who actually cared.
While we are talking about it here, can we even bring it up during the regular meeting since it was voted down?
Yeah. Well, we can bring it up until they play that little parliamentary game. Let me say that again. Parliamentary game where they take a vote to take it off and put it in Twilight Zone for 6 months.
Right. Okay.
And they would do that because this is an issue that concerns them in a political sense, I think. Don't you, Hood? Big political issue for them, not doing anything.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the trip that we've been planning for some time to Gaston County. So I think the manager may have some information on that. We'll give the floor to him. Have you contacted them?
Our last conversation was y'all were going to give me some dates, and then I was going to reach out to them once we had a general
it's up to
time
us.
frame. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Sorry.
All right. You guys got any dates? I know that Randy's busy. My business is busier than it's ever been, and what I've started doing is just taking time for things that need to be done. The customers, unfortunately, have to wait, and I hope I don't have any customers out there that heard that, because that can be bad.
They'll hear it.
Thank you.
I think we're getting ready to run into 2 really busy months. I got a lot going on in December, and I got right much going on in November. Now, if we go, I mean, I'm okay by middle November, but what do you guys say?
I'm filled up. I mean, I really am.
Well, we can put this off till January,
And that might be.
but I want some dates. I don't want to put it off. We've been putting it off. And I think what we're going to have to do if we put it off to January is we need to give some dates for January while we're sitting in here right now.
It's just a matter of picking a date then. I mean, there's some dates, November, December, I tell you, I cannot do it. But other than that,
Well, let's just keep in mind that, Gaston County, they may not be able to do it when we want to do it too. So, I don't have my January calendar in front of me, but if you guys have got a January calendar, take a look at it. And around I can't do anything on like the 3rd Thursday, but other than that, let's pick a week in there anytime during a certain week.
Well, we meet during the 4th week. Instead of meeting, let's just go to Gaston County
Well, yeah, we can do that.
and then report back.
Which
in
week do you
February.
guys want this to fall in?
That'd be 4th week.
To meet with them during the 4th week?
That's okay of January.
and how effective would a Zoom meeting be?
I don't like, we gotta go and have some private conversations.
Fourth week.
That's the 24th of January. Let's target that one.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we attempt to travel to Gaston County, depending on what Gaston County can do during the 4th week in January?
So move.
So second.
All right. Okay, all in favor signify by raising your hands. All opposed? All right, well, it's out there, but you've got a date. Now, I will say to the public this. One of the reasons for the apparent foot dragging that's going on up here, because we've been meeting for a while, is that we're having some opposition from some of our elected officials. Representative Kidwell has already told me that he is in no way that he will ever support this. So, because and I asked him if I could quote him, and he gave me permission to quote him. And he says that the sheriff has special powers, that he can drive off the feds if they start coming to Beaufort County and giving us trouble. That he can, and to put it the way he said it, that he can tell the federal government what to do. I asked for copies of where that is in the Constitution, and he has not provided it. But he has sent me some book that some sheriff wrote somewhere telling about great things the sheriffs can do. Now, let's just have a little practical conversation about how law enforcement works, and you guys are certainly welcome to weigh in. One of the things here is that no law enforcement officer can enforce all of the civil and all of the criminal laws that are on the books for Beaufort County. Can't do it. The city can't do all the civil and all the criminal laws that are on the books for the city of Washington. You physically can't do it because there are so many laws. Some of them don't mean anything. Jaywalking is a great example. There's a lot of useless things that go on that are within the law that were put there way back when for certain specific purposes, but are just no longer valid for enforcement today. So sheriffs and city governments set policies for their law enforcement officials as to what they want to emphasize. I'll give you a good example of something that's going to come up at the commissioners' meeting. It's not going to come up at this meeting, but it's going to come up in the next month or two, and that is the noise ordinance. We've got too many people driving around with gutted mufflers. We've got too many people that are disturbing the peace in Beaufort County. So that's going to come up. I'm tired of listening to it. I hear it and see it everywhere I go. There's no reason for somebody, just because he can buy a fancy muffler that makes a lot of noise, for me to have to put up with his noise. He needs to go somewhere out in the woods and run that thing and enjoy himself. But he doesn't have any right to disturb the rest of the public. As a matter of policy, when this comes up, the commissioners will discuss it. And if these guys are willing, although we haven't been doing a good job of supporting the law lately, not law enforcement officers, but the law, I'll be asking that we ask the sheriff to start enforcing more aggressively the noise ordinance, in particular relating to cars. And we'll be asking the city to help us do the same thing, and the town of Belhaven to help us do the same thing. This is a matter of policy as to whether you're going to put more pressure on this or more pressure on that. Drugs are a great example. You see that some cities are become really lax in some counties on drug enforcement. It's a matter of policy, how much effort you're going to put into this. Now, we've got 4 supposed full-time drug enforcement officers, and this county should have been cleaned up a long time ago, but it has not been. I've got people who come to me and say things like, did you know that some of the Mexican gangs are operating in Beaufort County? And these are people of Spanish descent who know. I wouldn't see it if it came by in front of me. And they said, what you got to watch for is certain signs and certain symbols, because they wear certain things a certain way and they have certain tattoos and all this sort of stuff. So, has the sheriff said anything about this? Has been any public? No. So we will have to bring that up as commissioners to say to the sheriff, what are you doing about this? We still don't know, because of the secrecy within the sheriff's department, what his arrangements with ICE are. They just won't tell you. They will give you an innocuous answer that doesn't mean anything. With the county police force, the public will have answers to these questions that they are not getting now. Because what we see more and more of, as the Ireland's presented tonight and other places, is the sheriff and his deputies do a great job of talking, and that's about it. Let me give you some reassurance that we're blah, 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 and then nothing is happening. So this is an example of policy and how policy works with the sheriff's department. At the moment, because we have a weak board of county commissioners, the sheriff pretty much does what he wants to. If you had a strong board of county commissioners, that would not be the case at all. You can't depend on always having a strong board of county commissioners. So a county police force makes the difference, because it allows the public to assert themselves. And it's just as you pointed out. So you go and complain to the sheriff. What do you get? Some mouth, and that's the end of it. That's not the way it's supposed to be at all. So I just say this as examples for what's going on and how policy works. So back to the reason we're dragging our feet. We're dragging our feet, frankly, because Representative Kidwell has said he's not supporting this. Well, it may not matter whether Commissioner Kidwell supports this or not. There are other people in the House of Representatives who will introduce bills for us. We're going slow at the moment simply to see if Commissioner Kidwell will come to his senses about law enforcement in Beaufort County, and to see how the coming election works out. That can have an impact on how this happens. It's one thing to carry a pistol in public and talk about how much you support law enforcement. It's another thing to actually try to bring law enforcement to the people, and that's what we're about here with this particular group. So do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I am I want to speak to the fact that I think in America we're at an inflection point. I think I've been calling and seeing this for years, maybe over a decade, that America was losing our grip on what it means to be an American, to be a republic of constitutional rights granted evenly to all of us. Maybe it's been longer than 10 years, and I've seen the Democratic Socialist Party be at the fulcrum of all this and the tip of the spear to lead a non-patriotic country into an awakening where everybody gets everything all the time. 10 months after having our first idiot president, we now have Biden inflation, and it is soaring. We have so many problems. The largest crime scene in the history of America is occurring right now, and has been occurring for the last 10 months on our southern border. Why? Because they won't enforce the laws. In fact, they are enticing them to come. And you're speaking about gangs, cartels. Why wouldn't they be here in America? What is being said by many people, wiser than myself, is that every state is now a border state, effectively a border state. Every town is effectively a border town. They are coming across our borders just so that the Democratic Socialist Party can resettle them here and hopefully vote them in order to effect a change in the demographics of our democracy, to elect folks and create what they like to call the Browning of America. So this is what we've got going on right now. We have a nation of laws, supposedly equally applied, that are not being enforced. And we have a political party I've just learned what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is when somebody says something trying to make you feel crazy that you're that person when actually they're that person. That's what the Democratic Socialist Party is. We saw it during the Trump administration. Russia. Well, guess what? They're the ones that started the whole Russia thing. It was a farce. It was a hoax. 2 fake impeachments. An idiot president, probably cheated in an election to get here. An idiot vice president. And then we found just this week Merrick Garland, who was almost on the Supreme Court, but wisely Leader McConnell held back since he wasn't qualified to be on the Supreme Court. And he was devastated in front of the Senate. I mean, he was eviscerated, excoriated, because he is terrible at what he does, because he does not follow the law. Right now, the number one problem we have in America is domestic terrorism. How many people have died in America this year from domestic terrorism? How many people have died from fentanyl overdoses? How much human trafficking is going on in America today? How many Bruce Grays are there out there? So if commissioners duly elected by people who want action can't do anything because of political expediency, we need to get rid of these people. And we need to talk tough in the meetings. I was talking to my Hood, Randy. I was speaking with my constituents who just moved to this county. At lunch today, he was eating his lunch, and he just happened to catch last month's version of the commissioner meeting. He wanted to talk about the Bruce Gray part. He said to me, who are those people that would not ask for an investigation for this poor man? I said, well, 2 of them are Democratic Socialists, 2 of them are nominal Republicans that switch back and forth between parties when it suits them. And they caucus together and they run the county. I just told the truth. That is the truth of it.
Right.
So what I'm getting at, we're going to have a sea change here in Beaufort County, in North Carolina, and in America, or we're going down the tubes.
Commissioner
Walker,
Walker,
more about that.
do you have anything?
No.
All right. That ends that segment. We'll go on to the next item, which is new business. Does anybody have any new business to put before the group? The only thing that I would say is you need to be making that list for when we go to Gaston County of questions to ask. And you think of all kinds of things like who when we do this, is going to take care of the photographing and the fingerprinting. I don't necessarily do the photographing, but the fingerprinting for when you go overseas. Passports. Who's going to do that? Now, we got a lot of questions like that we need to ask. And we need to ask how they cooperate on the service of warrants and a whole bunch of things like that. Because...
Permits. Would the sheriff still do permits, or
what kind of permits?
Firearm permits?
I thought they'd about done away with that.
I think they still do it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? I think it falls to the sheriff in the language of the law right now, but we would have to find out and see. But there's a lot of procedural things that we need to find out about.
I would like to look at this piece from Representative Kidwell and take it apart if we need to and study that.
Somebody email that to me, and I'll get it to both you and Commissioner Deathridge. 52 pages long.
I'll speed read it.
And anybody else that wants to read it can,
I'm not going to dwell on it.
I'll email it to them. Okay, no more new business. Future meetings. We are into, November is going to be a tough month for meetings, and December is going to be even more horrible. So you want to wait until January?
Yeah.
We're going to have to meet before we go to Gaston County. You can't just go to Gaston County without some kind of a public meeting.
For me, my best month would be November, if we can meet in November.
Well, maybe the manager could have arranged the January meeting by then if we meet in November.
I can certainly try to see if I can find out.
You want to meet in November and then not meet in December?
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's fine with me.
All right, we need to decide on a time. I can't meet the third Thursday.
I can't meet the 22nd.
When is the 22nd?
That's a Monday.
Okay. So the clerk pretty much has the county calendar, so she can give us some advice.
The county offices are closed on the 25th and 26th, with 25th being the day you would normally meet. You've said you can't meet on the third Thursday, which would be the 18th. If you want to switch to a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that leaves, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or the 15th, 16th, and 17th. With obviously giving the county manager extra time, you might want to consider the 22nd or 23rd.
Okay.
That's still the same week of Thanksgiving, though, just to keep a reminder in case any of y'all are going out of town.
Yeah, my wife's trying to drag me out of town.
I'll be out of town.
He'll be out of town.
Just give me a date and I'll shoot for it.
15th or 16th?
November?
Yeah. Does one of those days work better than the other?
I'm not showing anything on our calendar. It's a Monday or Tuesday.
Let's do it on a Tuesday. I don't know why, but if that suits you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about November the 16th for the next meeting, and we'll be taking up the issue of the 52-page booklet at that particular meeting. We'll be hosting whoever wants to come and speak before us, either supporting or not supporting the sheriff's, the police force for Beaufort County. What else will we be taking up? Does anybody else have anything they want to put on the agenda right now?
I'm trying to see if we're going to do anything, if Mr. Gray's going to get, what's going to happen with him meeting with the sheriff.
We can, depending on what's going on with his situation, invite him to come back before us to give a report.
That would be good, because that means a lot to me, and when I start hearing my constituents talk about that one instance and the way they talked about it, if you're not going to take care of the least of us, our children, the Lord said, suffer to me the children. And if you're not going to take care of the Lord's children and glibly just say, well, I didn't know about it and I don't really care, that's not good enough for me. And it should be good for any elected official. I cannot understand how these four do not care. So we need to keep talking about it until they care. Remember how they wouldn't film the meetings years ago? And we shamed them into it? Let's shame these non-caring people into doing something.
Okay. All right. We're going to meet on the 16th of November. We have some of the items you already have for the agenda. Please keep up with those because I'll probably forget them before then. Do I hear a motion to adjourn if we have no other business?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? We're adjourned.